Hi guys, so today I'm going to be talking a little about a wedding night horror story and all the facts that I knew when I comprised this. Dawn Walker was a 52-year-old grandmother and mother of 3 daughters from Lightcliffe near a place called Halifax in the UK. She had been reported missing by her husband on October 31st of 2021. Only days after getting married on the 27th of October. Now, Thomas, her new husband, had claimed to police that he and his wife had taken off to Skegness for 2 days after the wedding, where they had stayed in a lay-by to celebrate their honeymoon. What? Apparently, Thomas had tried to blame his new wife's disappearance on her mental state and health, which he had said included depression and bipolar. He also mentioned that she had said she had wanted a divorce. What, really? After what I can only imagine was the most magical 2-day stay honeymoon and a lay-by in Skegness. And if you're wondering what one of them may look like, I'll put it up for you right now. Thomas, acting as a concerned new husband, began searching for his missing wife. He asked some neighbours if they would help him in looking for Dawn, and for some very unexplained reason thought it was a good idea to joke to some of them that he may be held responsible for his wife's killing. Wait, what? Killing? How do you even know she's dead at this point, Thomas? This crazy comment must have made the neighbours' bodies go cold. I mean, who would say that? Certainly not a genuinely distraught husband who is meant to be searching for his missing wife. That's for sure. Thomas was even devious enough to proceed to take Dawn's youngest daughter, Kira, and her son to look for her, knowing full well they wouldn't find her. I mean, that's just awful. But he continued his act of sickness by taking them both back to his home in Shirley Grove and actually made them lunch. What? This wouldn't seem strange at the time though, because a lot of people would want to be around family at times of trauma. And plus he was just making sure that none of them went hungry. They'd been out all day searching for their mum, their grandmother. It's making sure. Such a kind, caring, lovely man. Now, Dawn's family had actually still been receiving texts from her, which must have only confused them more and made it way more agonising for them, considering her new husband had found it fit to declare her missing to the police. Thomas was already known to Dawn's family and others that knew him as violent and controlling. Neighbours mentioned that on many occasions they actually heard them screaming. I wonder how many people had suspected Thomas from the beginning. Doing something to Dawn, you know. I mean, they'd only got married 4 days before. Why would he? Well, Thomas certainly had what you may call a checkered past. He had accumulated various convictions over the years, which included GBH, which is grievous bodily harm, when he was only 17 years old. Also offences included dishonesty, common assault, battery, breach of a non-molestation order, I'm not sure what that is, and also robberies in the 90s. So yeah, not really the guy that you want your mum, your grandmother or your friend to date, let alone marry really. But I guess people can change. Thomas did. Only he changed into a cold-blooded murderer. As Dawn's neighbours proceeded to search for her, they made a horrifying discovery. Dawn's body had been found stuffed into a suitcase and callously discarded nearby a child's park amongst some undergrowth. This must have been utterly traumatising for the people who found it. Honestly, I'm glad that they did, because just imagine some child or children coming upon this when they're just playing out in the park. I mean, we all know just how inquisitive children can be. And they could have easily opened this up and been scarred for life, which I'm sure the neighbours are anyway. Dawn had been beaten and strangled to death, and then disgustingly stuffed into what I can only assume was her own suitcase, probably packed with her own belongings, ready for their honeymoon in this Skegness lay-by. How could anybody do this? Unfortunately, it was found that the horrific killer had even broke 5-foot Dawn's bones, just to make sure that her whole body would fit inside the suitcase. He married her 4 days before. Remember that? What's wrong with him? Literally, days earlier he married this woman and probably made many promises, and I can bet that days later beating, strangling and breaking her body was not one of those promises. Now investigators will get a very lucky break in the horrific murder case of Dawn. Thomas's neighbour had CCTV outside of their home, which gave a clear view towards the newlyweds' driveway. And what they would discover upon looking at this footage captured was unnerving, to say the least. Thomas had previously said to investigators that both he and Dawn had taken off for a 2-day honeymoon in Skegness. But when analysing the neighbours' CCTV, there was absolutely no sign of Dawn. No sign after that night that she came back. After the night she got married in her red dress, and she came back and was seen on the CCTV, there was no sign of Dawn from there out. After the evening they had returned from celebrating their nuptials at the Albert pub in Brick House, where she is seen on the cameras along with Thomas. She is still wearing, as I said, the red dress she chose to marry him in. This is the last ever footage of Dawn seen alive. Dawn Walker seen alive. Thomas can also be seen on the same cameras after reporting his wife's missing, and also being told that the police would need to search his home, pulling what seems to be a fully filled suitcase along his driveway towards the location he dumped it. Thomas Nutt is a big bloke, so he doesn't seem to struggle with this task or what he did next. The CCTV would also show after he dragged the suitcase, which we now know contains the full body of Dawn, all the way down his drive and garden. He then proceeds to literally just throw the entire thing over a fence into some undergrowth and just left it there, just like it never happened. It's a bit of rubbish, isn't it? He didn't try very hard in hiding his crime. I mean, how long would he have left poor dead Dawn to rot in that house if the police hadn't declared they needed to search it? Because that's why he moved it, let's face it. He didn't even care that she was in there. This means that after Thomas Nutt, the absolute nut, had beaten, strangled and stuffed Dawn into a cupboard and then just happily went on his merry way to Skegness on his honeymoon alone, the entire time her poor lifeless body was just rotting away, he genuinely couldn't have cared any less. 4 whole days had passed in this time, and Thomas just carried on until he faked his new wife's disappearance. This also means the very day that Thomas took Dawn's daughter and her son out looking for her, and then brought them back to his house, remember, for lunch, that Dawn's dead body lay just meters away, stuffed into a cupboard like an old sock. Just imagine how devastated her daughter would have felt when she found this out. I would have been physically sick. That's a very sick, cold-blooded mind. The freak was even sick and twisted enough to decorate his house for Halloween after he had returned home from his Skegness honeymoon. Your new wife is dead, rotting in your cupboard for days, and you're putting up Halloween decorations. Regardless of how or why, I can only imagine while he was away, for him, it was out of sight, out of mind. But really returning home and being so unfazed in fact that you think you're ready to celebrate Halloween, what is wrong with you, man? Defo a screw loose there. It is unclear as to why Thomas Nutt snapped that night in particular, but he claimed she died during a row after their honeymoon. What? So you were rowing and she just died? Apparently, he said that Dawn had tried to put him in jail before. She said, in his words, said I had tried raping and assaulting her, said she was going to do it again. She started screaming, and I have hit her in the face and put my arm around her neck. Which I'm guessing is the manner of which he has strangled her to death, like some pure UFC fighter or something. Literally, she never stood a chance that night. Imagine the power, strength and force behind this attack from this huge bloke on this 5-foot woman. In court, jurors heard from Thomas's ex-partner who said he had attacked her just days after she had given birth, and this was all over a row of what to call him, the baby she'd just given birth to. Dawn's sister said that he had controlled her sister for over 3 years before this and had isolated her from members of her family. I knew the type. Her youngest daughter, Kira, was also one to give an impact statement in court, where she described her mother as being the most beautiful soul whose dreams and ambitions have been taken away from her. Judge Jonathan Rose said that Thomas had a history of violence towards Dawn and a previous known partner, who he had demanded subservience from, and he had used his size, strength and character to malign effect for many years. So basically, have full control of these women, you see. Thomas Nutt admitted to manslaughter after he claimed he never meant to kill or seriously harm his wife. Okay. But the jury, luckily, rejected his attempts and was found guilty of murder after just 3 hours of deliberation, and was ultimately sentenced to life with a minimum of 21 years. Which, I'm sorry, never really makes sense to me. If it's life, it should be life. The remainder of his life. What is all this 21 years nonsense about? If it's life, it's life. And he's clearly going to live longer than 21 years if he's physically and everything well. Britain, you never get it right with the life convictions, as they also like to call it. Dawn's life was taken forever, just hours after her wedding. Yet he will still have years left if he's released. Crazy to me. 52-year-old Dawn leaves behind 3 caring daughters and 3 loved grandsons. I guess Halloween really can be horrifying, and what Halloween it was for Dawn and her family. All I can say is, prison for you, pal. Hi guys, I just wanted to say that all of my stories are real, true murders and crimes that have happened around the world, where I've collected real, factual evidence from the internet, Google, YouTube, Wikipedia. I've watched multiple documentaries, and I have taken a lot of time to collect everything and put it all together in these documentaries for you to enjoy. So I hope you enjoy watching them as I have enjoyed making them. Please like and share whatever you have to say on these things. Maybe subscribe, I don't know. Anyway, I've enjoyed making them. Hope you enjoy watching them. Thank you.